Wow, that was dope. That was that I don't think I've ever heard electronic music quite like that. That was really amazing. Thanks for uh thanks for putting that together for us, Stevie.
Yeah, welcome everybody to Grove Sessions. Good to see you all on this beautiful Thursday, hot AF Thursday. Uh, we're here with Stevie Tee from Doogatron. I'm Rick Coughlin, the CEO and co-founder of Grove Studios. We founded Grove to basically enable people to create music and share their voices with the world because we believe enabling voices and creating music makes the world a better place. We all know we want the world to be a better place. So um, we've we've been going through these COVID times, as I call them these days, and we've been trying to continue to support musicians and support artists and podcasters at a time when it's very difficult to and very challenging to get in to the studio world and to get out there and make the bread and butter that is so many musicians and other artists livelihoods. But there are good things going on and we want to support that, and we're doing that through Grove Sessions. We realized that the video today was a little jerky. We had some technical difficulties earlier when we launched on a different platform. We're testing out a new platform, so we're going to work through some of those challenges. But we'll be reposting Stevie's video in high def, and it won't be so herky jerky. So consider looking out for that. It's a great set, amazing stuff, really really cool. Um, we're also just sharing our link to our patronicity campaign. Our patronicity campaign is designed to really help us make some ends meet. As you know, we were shut down for 3 solid months, and while we're open back up again, we still have some challenges and some additional costs because of COVID-19, and making sure that our studio is clean, safe, and socially distanced for people. So, if you could take a look at our patronicity campaign, we would definitely appreciate that. Um, just a final announcement before we launch into our chat with Stevie of Doogatron. We opened up our podcast room just before COVID. Nobody was able to book it. We just finished, put the finishing touches on it, and it is sounding amazing, and it looks amazing, and it is clean and sterilized after each session for everybody that is interested in podcasting. But we're offering the podcast studio for free for the entire month of July. So it's super simple. You just go to grovestudios.space, click on the book space button, go to the podcast room, pick the hours that you want to podcast in, and check out. And it's free for the whole month of July. So we hope that if you're interested in podcasting and would like to get into a professional podcasting studio, check that out on grovestudios.space. But anyway, that's enough of me rambling. I'm here with Max Price, as always, head of social media and marketing for Grove Studios. Max is also a producer, rapper, and music business consultant. And we're here with Stevie Tee from Doogatron, man. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. What's up?
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for putting up with our various technical issues today, man. The streaming gig is tough sometimes, so uh, apologize for that.
It happens. We definitely have not had the ambition to sort all that out ourselves yet. Like, we haven't done any live streaming stuff on
Yeah,
our end either. So I get it. It seems like there's, I don't know, a lot of variables to
yeah.
consider.
There
There.
are. I mean, we've been constantly working towards, just trying to bring better quality, and that's why instead of because we used to do the live stream like directly through Zoom, like, live, and and the sound quality, like Zoom just like killed the sound quality. And
Uh,
so with the screen share, you're able to keep like the sound quality. I just think that the video was just really high quality. It's in like 1080p and everything like that.
yeah. Yeah, it's probably a lot.
Probably the issue. So I think we didn't realize that out of the gate. But either way, we've got a really high quality video of you doing your set. We're going to make sure to upload that on YouTube. Probably want to put it on your channels as well to share with people, because it was a great set, man. And that was a really fun day and a fun performance. So we're doing these performances as some know that we're doing these pre-recorded and stream them live, and then following up with an interview. So we're here to like learn more about you as an artist and share that with those watching. Definitely check back for the full performance in the definition that Facebook and YouTube will better accept than 1080p. So let's we always like to start like our little conversation here with going back to the beginning of music for the artist, right? Like your backstory, your origin story. How did you first get into music?
Well, like I got into music. Obviously I like got into music from listening to it first, and then probably about middle school started playing guitar. Did like, you know, kind of like rock bands and stuff like that. Once I was, a little at the end of middle school, but really mostly in high school and stuff. And you know, kind of at that point where like I was getting out of high school and going to college, a lot of people going different ways or whatever, like keeping a band together just didn't really happen. Yeah, it can be real tough. It's still, you know, it still can be really tough keeping more than like one or two other people, like, you know, like in the same schedule or whatever. But yeah, and also like my music tastes kind of like grew to encompass electronic music. So yeah, I'd say, God, I must have been like 18 or probably about 20 actually, once I finally started like using like Reason and trying to make music with software, and like just getting more into like that kind of like got me into like synthesizers and everything, and like sampling or whatever. And yeah, and then it's just all been kind of snowballing from there. Like really started taking it a lot more seriously in, I don't know, the last 5 years or so. But like but yeah, that's about it.
What was like the electronic music tipping point? Was there one where you heard a particular artist and you were like, "Oh, I'm gonna do this"? Was there a moment like that for you?
I don't know. Yeah, I think that was more about like just sort of trying the software and everything, and like trying to make music in those kinds of things, but in that kind of a way. But I don't know. I mean, like I would say like to pick something, like if I had to really narrow it down to like one album or something, like whenever I first heard, it was like near the end of high school at some point, and I was kind of interested or like at least sort of open to the idea of it by this point. But when I first heard the Richard D. James album by Aphex Twin, that was the first thing I'm like, wow, this is crazier than like any music like I could have thought up with a guitar. It changed a lot of my paradigms about like what you know, like what electronic music could be, I guess. Let's say that.
That's really cool. Is Reason do you still use Reason?
No, not really. There's things I loved about it because it's like a really cool visual representation. It looks more like gear you would see in a studio, especially at the time that they probably started making that software and everything, and like what somebody doing techno or hip hop or whatever kind of electronic music stuff, that it's like it would be so sick on like a giant touchscreen desk surface or something. Like it would be such a cool program. And they have some cool like iOS stuff like that. Propeller Heads, like the developers, like made little app versions of, and I know they keep updating, but yeah, eventually it was like got into Ableton. It was a little more, it was a little more live friendly, a little more just user friendly in general. Just got to where I was like finishing a lot more stuff, not just like making a bunch of loops that I could sort of like perform with or whatever. Like I know they got like an arrangement system in there and everything too, but it was just not like, it didn't click with me that well.
Yeah,
and
I'll
Ableton
get caught up
did.
in that. Just loving making the loops and then not wanting to just stretch it out into a whole. So I'm wanting to move on to a new thing. It's so fun just like making those loops and searching for the sounds, and Ableton makes it really easy. Do you use like mostly VSTs, or do you use mostly hardware synths, or a mix? What's that?
Yeah, a mix for sure. Like use some VSTs, but definitely like a lot of like when we're all together like recording this stuff, like it's a lot of us being like, as you can see kind of like behind me, like like and we finally invested in this big mixer. Like it's about like plugging everything in and playing live and everything, and some soft synths get incorporated, like actually too, like as a matter of fact, like a really good example of this is like in that video that you just saw me performing, like in this sort of like portable pared down way. It was like I was playing like the analog synth, like the mini log, but like I also had like a MIDI out going to my iPad, and that was running PPG Wave Mapper. So like anything that I was playing on the Minilog computer was also playing that digital synth, and like that kind of like layering has really cool. Like and being able to like use things to like trigger more than one instrument with just the one part you're playing has been a real good like kind of breakthrough for like our sound lately, and
because like playing live, I mean, I've ran into this, because I mean when you're doing the record, the layering is a lot of what gives you that fullness and that just like big feel. And then when you're playing live, like you don't have those. It's harder to get those layers and like all the little mixing plugins and stuff that make it sound great, so I like that strategy.
I mean that's still really the case for sure, where it's, I mean, you can like craft everything like when you're producing something, and there is some amount of just like you got to let it ride and go live. We're doing it live,
F it, we're going live.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, would you, like you mentioned that like that's that kind of, your setup is informing a lot of the sound lately. Would you say that lent to the recent single release? If you didn't know, those of you that are watching, you recently released a single, right? Audrey Witherspoon.
Yeah.
Cool track.
Yeah, thank you. There's definitely some of that layering going on with that one. Like, we were actually, it was just me and Kyle making that one like initially, and like when Mike's around, and he still comes around, and we're still sending stuff back and forth, and he's gonna start like jamming with us again in August. Like he moved out to Brooklyn for a little bit and was just doing some different stuff. But like when we were putting down the most of that, like the foundation of it, it was like where I would usually be doing like bass line stuff. Like Kyle was doing the drum machine and like running this guy actually for the bass line. Like it's like a little it's like a wannabe 303 like redo that Roland put out. But so it's like got a cool like step sequencer on it, and like it gets really cool like acid house kind of sounding bass lines. But yeah, we were doing that again where it's like a digital thing. It can sound pretty analog or whatever, but we were also like, we were doing like the MIDI thing to run out to my Novation base station here just to get some get some analog bass, and you know, just to see what would happen like layering those two together. And then so once he was doing like drums and the bass line, it kind of freed me up, and I was playing a lot of guitar last summer, you know, oddly enough, and you know, and we were just so going for it. So it freed me up to be able to like play guitar and sing and just kind of jam like the way that we normally would, but just kind of with a bit of different instrumentation and just sort of a different workflow a little bit, and getting different results out of it.
Yeah, it's cool. The guitar was a standout for me. I you know, because I'm a guitar player too, so
Sure.
I love the shoegazy.
Thank you.
You know, the shoegazy thing. You know, it's very cool.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, because like especially too, like I like playing guitar, and like that's like I said, that's how I got into doing music, is like kind of like through rock stuff and everything. But at some point, like I was more I eventually, more specifically though, I became like a bass player. And as much as I'm into production and everything, I've never had a ton of pedals. But in the last year or so, I finally started getting pleased with where my guitar tones were getting from just running the guitar in the box and then doing the effects in the software. And it was fine. Like I was finally like, wow, I love I at least it's like, for my purposes, at least it's at least good enough and close enough to what I'm looking for. Now. And so like that's pretty satisfying to be able to be like, well, I don't need to buy a ton of pedals, or at least not right now, or I don't need to rush into it or whatever. Like I'm at least like using stuff I already have and getting results that I'm happy with.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like, even just the modeling technology and stuff has really come so far. I mean, I just remember like the first Line 6 stuff when it came out, and it's like there's other companies that are doing it now, and like, you know, some of the plugins are pretty remarkable, like what you can get with, you know, without having to buy like a slew of pedals. Yeah, because those things can get really crazy expensive too, as you know.
Yeah, I mean, and the other end, I mean, the equivalent of that in like the electronic synth world is also like the Eurorack modular thing. It seems like a really similar thing where it's like you can kind of just mix and match and try different signal paths like forever, and there's like small companies like, you know, starting out of their garage making these modules or pedals, you know, and just creating stuff that like people haven't heard yet, or just like sort of, you know, changing things up, breaking things through. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
it's endless.
Producing, like to keep up with like the new things too. You know, they're always making new like plugins that make new sounds, and that's dope. I love like adding guitar in like to my production, and you know, I have like Native Instruments like Guitar Rig Pro or something like that.
Yeah, I use a lot of that.
Yeah, that's it's super dope. It adds like such a nice layer. Do you like what is your favorite part of making music? Like, is playing guitar, like, you know, since you started with that, is that kind of your favorite, or do you not really have a favorite?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because like guitars are sort of a little more expressive to me in some ways. Like playing them, it's a little more like feeling and muscle memory from just having done it longer. And I've never like trying to play like piano or something, like trying to get my hands to do two like drastically different things. It's like
There you go.
I'm not there yet or whatever. But like the way keyboards are laid out are like so much more straightforward and linear and like easier for writing on in some ways that like I mean I you know, I like
Mhm.
using both. I mean my favorite part, especially lately, the whole like you know, lockdown and everything, it's been a real solid reminder that like my favorite part of the process is definitely like us getting together and jamming and recording. Like that's, yeah, like we took about we literally just 2 weeks ago had our first recording session back, and then Kyle busted up his thumb helping his buddy move, so he was trying to be a mensch, so that's
Oh,
good. But
man.
but we've been getting back to it, and but yeah, it was definitely a real reminder that it's like that's the best part. And
Yeah.
it can be hard to get inspired to do something on your own, or like just sending stuff back and forth. Like a lot of it is about getting together in the same room and playing still.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think that's got to be top three, you know, challenges that we've all had as musicians. It's you know, getting together, you know, because it's just not, it just doesn't sound the same as, you know, live instruments happening in a space. You know, sending files back and forth like gets you so far, but a lot of those inspirations come from like even happy accidents that happen while you're jamming, and you know somebody's like, oh dude, okay, yeah, let's do that again or whatever, and then that's how the creation process works. So it's definitely been a trip up for so many of us, you know.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you guys are still doing it, you know, and it's good to
Oh
hear that
yeah.
you got together. I hope his thumb gets better soon.
Do you guys do your recording like there in your studio right there, or do you guys go like and get it recorded, or you know, how do you handle like the mixing and mastering, things like that?
Yeah, yeah, we do. I mean, we used to do it in Kyle's basement. We started doing it over here now. I mean, we've definitely gone and done some studio time, like with this producer named Brian Kage, lives in Detroit. He's a great techno producer and DJ. He's also like a mastering engineer, and has actually gotten like a lot of like I think like mastering and like video work through Psychopathic Records, like the ICP label,
Yeah, very
because
cool.
I mean it's a local, you know they're in the area and he's in the area. And so I mean we did do one day of studio time out there and like recorded a track, and he got us to record in a very like different sort of workflow um, than we're used to working in. So that was cool. And it was, and we also used the time to get some advice on on like my where my mix downs were at on some crucial tracks and everything. And so I mean right now, yeah, we are doing all the mixing and mastering pretty much. It's sort of like we're kind of seeing how far we can get with it on our own and see how close. And you know, it's just like see how far you can get with it before you're putting a lot of money into something you don't know if it's going to. I mean, it's still, you know, like a hobby for us and everything, and you know we're working full time at, you know, our normal jobs and everything. So it is, it's a real tough, like it's sort of a catch-22 situation, because that is where you end up getting some advice from people who know better and from like an objective ear and everything. But yeah, it's like we kind of have to be, I don't know, we've just been sort of like conservative about when we're really ready to go do that or what is worthy of doing that with. I mean, there's a lot of times where our recording situation is a little convoluted and not like the best it could be. Like there's certain drum machines we'll use where it's all slammed onto like one audio track, and there's not an ability for separation there. So like tracks that we make that's like that, like I can get pretty close to what I'm looking for and where I'm pretty happy with it. But it's also like, yeah, I don't know if it's like something we should be going, I don't know if it's worth, going to spend all that money on it or whatever. And it's also like, I don't know. I also saw like Mad Mike Banks like give a speech at like Moog Fest. Like he's a producer, keyboard player. I think he was even involved with like Parliament or Funkadelic for a little bit at certain points. But like he was like really involved with Underground Resistance and everything like that. And like I saw him do like a talk at Moog Fest when I went like 5-6 years ago, and like he described like Robert Hood like making tracks like on a 4-track and having to sum drums down onto like one track just so you can get more instruments in there, and like having to work with what you've got and everything. So it, or like you hear like a guy like Jack White, like he said people were like hitting him up for remixes and they were like flabbergasted when he'd send them stems, and it's like, oh, all the drums are on one track, and he's just like, yeah, I mean, this is how we did it, like this is what we got or whatever. And it's just right. Like there's a little bit of that, like let's let it ride, let's see what we can do, let's let's just go for it,
yeah. I mean, it's like if you like just thinking about all that and like the kind of stuff, when you have some of those limitations, like I toured the Motown Museum one time, and you look at how those guys were recording back then, like some of the stuff they used to have to do to get it, and it turns out that it sounds great, right? Like it's defined its own sound. I mean, in a way, that's when you're like forced into these pigeonholes, so to speak, like it maybe it becomes like a part of the sound, even though you feel like you're kind of like square peg round hole, but it works, right? Eventually,
with all the options that you have in production now, like sometimes constraints are like really freeing and just being like, okay, let's just move, like this is a decision that's been made, let's just move on and finish something and then make something else, like
yeah.
And you guys also have like the 3 sets of ears, like it's a lot harder when you're one artist with one set of ears, and you have your skill set and you can do your best to mix and master, but you never know, like, oh, there might be some frequencies that I'm just missing, that I just can't hear, that are going to bother someone else's ears. So it's nice that you have like the 3 people, and as long as you can get like some different ears on it. And I mean, your music sounds amazing, so you guys are doing a great job with the mixing and mastering. And I think it like serves a purpose, but it's also like, thousands of dollars per project, so it's like you gotta weigh, is it worth it? And I feel like, sometimes if you're laying vocals or something like that it can be worth it to go into a studio that has a really nice microphone and like their whole like hardware preamp and all that stuff. But like with a lot of the stuff that, without vocals, and when you're just like doing the electronic music, I would assume, it's not, I mean, it's not easy, obviously, but you guys do a great job at it. It sounds good.
Thank you. Yeah, like I don't know what I was gonna say. I forgot what I was gonna say now, but
we're having those moments sometimes too. That's all right.
it's all good. But yeah, like it's sort of just like, I guess it's like like trying to teach a man to fish kind of thing, like learn, like trying to get as far as I can with it on my own. And like a lot in music now seems like the name of the game is like, how far can you get with it on your own?
Oh, absolutely.
And then and it's like, but I get it and I understand. And you know, I mean, we would love like more advice or more I think the stuff that we recorded like at Brian's studio, like definitely just even just sounds better, even though a lot of it is all just stuff that's going in the box. And that is like technical know-how and capability and maybe better equipment or whatever. So it's like, it's not like I don't see the value in that, but you know, like it, you know, we're still trying a lot of different things, and you know, we'll see what it's going to take to get us to somewhere where we are looking at making bigger investments to have a bigger, you know, have better productions.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like, in my opinion, I think that like marketing and spending money on advertising and stuff is, you know, just as important as pretty much like spending money on creating it. So like if you know, and since you guys already get it to this point, your music is already at a point clearly where people will like it and people will, you know, gravitate towards it. So a lot of the time, I mean, I've definitely made tons of I've made a lot of songs where I just record it at my house, but then I spend a couple $100 promoting it, you know, and which I wouldn't have been able to spend if I had gone and like recorded it at a studio, you know. So you know, there's other things to spend money on. There's so many things to spend money on, you know, especially with how flooded social media is nowadays. Like it's often really hard to get people to even like hear your stuff if you're not putting a couple bucks behind it or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we've getting creative out of the gate. Like, yeah, I like your point though. Like, you know, the idea of getting it as far as you can get it, and then you take it to somebody. I mean, you know, I don't do electronic music, but we do a lot that, you know, in a less expensive hourly situation first, and then take it to somebody who's gonna, you know, they're gonna be 65 or $75 an hour. But by the time you get it there, then they can do that. But you save some money out of the gate, and maybe you can throw some money at like a marketing campaign for it. And Max is always good to talk to about marketing. That's literally his job too. So, you know, we're always picking his brain about, you know, this and that. But it's like one of those things. I think as artists, like we like, we know it's like a necessary, you know, we know we should do it. We know we don't necessarily know how. You know, I ask Max stupid questions about marketing all the time, just to ask him, you know, like, well, yeah, should we, you know, should we do it at 5:30 or is 6 o'clock a better time? You know, which is like, but he's got a lot of insight about that. But I do. I'm with Max, man. I think the music sounds great, and I hear the influences. Honestly, like I hear like the Nine Inch Nails influence. I hear like you know, there's some Radiohead stuff going on there. There's like just like cool, like it's feels fresh to me. So I really dig it. And I can't wait till I get to drive my car around a little bit more, because that's my favorite place to listen to this kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Thank you, man. Yeah, and especially too, like the singles that we got that we're putting out this year is very much like a testing the waters kind of thing, like just seeing what react like, and it was all just sort of like it's been sort of like gradually like moving from like just sounding pretty techno with just some vocal over it, then to like a techno track with a vocal over it, but there's also some like kind of reverby guitar. And then like this one, it's
and
like
horns. You got horns in the
Yeah, my buddy Jamie, yeah, he sat in for that one. Like he wasn't like live at the time, but like we had him over and we recorded and we did like a jam like in a similar tempo, and we liked some of the stuff that we did a lot. That it just sort of like we had we had this like, you know, this track, like this chunk that like felt like a complete tune and everything, but there was like that pocket sort of near the end where there's like no more vocals and there's sort of just room again for like something like a lead melodic, like, you know, thing. And like that segment that we used, I thought just like lined up really well with like the room we had there, and sort of like even changed in the places that where it's like you know, it's sort of like like more staccato and loopy and riffy at first, and then gets sort of more like wide and breathy or textured or whatever as we're like winding down and like outroing. Like it just kind of we were happy with it, that it worked and everything. But yeah, we're trying different things. We have a lot of those influences, and a lot of it is too is we record a lot of stuff and see what patterns are emerging there. Like all of our EPs last year were pretty much just straight like techno house tracks, not much vocals, and they were all like sort of like every session we did, we got like 2 or 3 like sort of defined tracks out of each session, and they just seemed like sort of perfect to like keep together and like make as sort of like one EP together and make these like 4 like that was just like a pattern that emerged out of a lot of stuff we put down. And like within the last year or so, we kind of were just sort of trying more things, messing around a bit more, and we have a lot of other influences. Kyle, speaking of guitars, Kyle just bought like a white Dave Mustaine Jackson guitar.
Oh shit! Wow.
I was never a big Megadeth guy, but he loved all that kind of stuff or whatever.
It's so funny because all that stuff is coming back too. Like I'm seeing people playing some really weird guitars lately, but it fits like those guitars, like, you know, have this. I mean, they're vintage, but like they were ahead of their time, and you know, stuff like that. I'm seeing people playing like Steinbergs with like you know, there's no headstock on them and stuff like that. It kind of fits in, you know, I feel like like the look of it works. I like it. And speaking of looks, actually, I was like, um, when I was listening to some of your stuff earlier, I was kind of like just digging the general, like your artwork. You know, from the first Doogatron release, right? With like the techno dog, like
yeah,
that's a really cool image. I like
thank
that, but
you.
I like the abstract like artwork and stuff. I feel like it really like works well with your music. But who's doing all the artwork?
Thank you. Well, like, yeah, the album was our friend Paul Snyder. I had a really specific idea of what I thought would work and be a cool cover, and it was also sort of like an idea of like having a cover and a logo. And so we like hit him up, and you know, he's a buddy of ours, but like, and you know, we got him to do that one.
It's a sweet, like that. I love that cover actually. Like that is
Thank
like
you.
the texture of like the I don't know, it looks like fur, right?
Yeah,
Probably.
the background looks like fur, like clouds or something. Yeah, like he did a lot of our flyers when we any of the shows that like we set up and organized ourselves. Like we would always get him to do the flyers. Once we started doing more like these subscription based distribution things, and we're like thinking about putting out like like more music more frequently and like but smaller amounts at a time, it was kind of like yeah, it was like I wanted to be able to find things that that I could do, or that I was happy enough with being like the cover art. And so like I did like all the EPs last year. I did our first couple singles this year, the first two. And then for this current one, Audrey Witherspoon, my wife Rachel, did the artwork for that. Like
I love it. It looks sick.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, she will be really happy to hear that. Like, I had a really vague general idea, and was just like, I don't know, probably just sort of tapped and like not like ready to put something together. And she was just like interested in the idea and wanted to try it. And like, yeah, it worked out really well. And like, and she's excited to help do more stuff like that for us.
That's pretty sweet. You have like a built-in, like kind of, professional working on stuff too. I mean, the stuff that you put together is great too, but it just feels all like really cohesive somehow,
Sure, thank you. Yeah, and I mean, she's not like a graphic designer or anything, or like that's that's not what she does for a living or anything. But like she was interested in enough to want to do it, and to be like coming up with like stuff and getting better results than I would have too, especially in this case. Like I was really happy with it. And it's really awesome. Like I'm glad she wanted to, and that it like elevated things.
Yeah, no, it looks great, man. I think it totally fits the vibe of the music and everything too. So
thank you.
I'm a big fan of, that kind of, I love the artwork. I mean, it's like, it goes back to, opening up a record and looking at the artwork. And like when you're on Bandcamp, you click on the logo and, or the album cover, and it gets bigger and you're like, oh, sweet. Look at that. That's really cool. So, you guys have like what, 8 or 9 releases, EPs. Your first was like a full, like a long player in 2018, Doogatron self-titled. Where did Doogatron, there's a dog involved. So like, where's the name come from?
Yeah, I don't know. The name comes from like, just, I don't know, at some point, like me and a bunch of my buddies just like, I don't know, like Dooga just became like a term of endearment among my friends. Like, and then so like when me and Kyle started just like he was just starting to like DJ and stuff, and I had been like producing and messing around with DJing in Ableton a little bit at the time, and it was like these like really sort of like solitary kind of pursuits initially, that like once we started like getting together and like doing stuff together, it just sort of like felt like forming like Voltron again. And so, yeah, the Doogatron thing was just like, it was just, I don't know, band names are tough. And that was just something that was just like, all right, that's perfect. That's it. Don't have to think about it. Like,
so it's like a blend between Dooga and Voltron.
Yeah, and or also too, it wasn't even like something I thought about at the time, but like Cybotron, Juan Atkins, man, like Techno City and Clear and stuff like that, like a little bit of an homage to that, and like you mentioned like the self-titled album cover and that artwork, like that our friend Paul Snyder did. He he pointed out to me like after the fact, he was like, you notice like the shape of the dog's head and like the kind of like visor Cyclops eyes thing. He's like, it's very like RoboCop. He was like, I was going for like he was doing a bit of an homage to like the RoboCop helmet in there, which is another kind of like Detroit wink. Like the Doogatron D, or the Detroit Old English D for that also will like can stand for Doogatron.
Yeah, it's cool. I definitely dig it. It's super fun. It's like, it feels like it's a little bit like playful too, which I like, man. It's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's hard to get that across sometimes. I feel like our music can be like sort of discordant or sinister or whatever, or uneasy or something. Like there's a lot of stuff we do that can be like that, and it's fun. We do have like a lot of like silliness and when we're getting together or whatever, and it can, so sometimes you want to put that through in certain things.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
we all take ourselves, pretty seriously, I think, as artists, but like sometimes you
Yeah.
just gotta, not take yourself too seriously. It keeps it fun. There's
Right, very important. Very
silliness
important.
should be involved at any given point, in my opinion. It's
You
amazing.
guys, is there like a specific message or that you guys, want to bring through to the world through your music or no? I mean, that's perfectly fine too, but do you guys have like, a message or a vibe that you wanna spread?
Um, I mean, I don't think there's definitely nothing we've like sat and like mission statement. We haven't done like anything like that or anything, but like
I don't think
for
any band's ever done that before. I don't know. Is that a thing? Like,
I don't
imagine
know.
having a meeting with your band and being like, okay, guys, we need a mission statement before we can go any farther.
Or some of it I'm sure just comes naturally from whatever people's like common interests are once they get started and everything, and like Mike and I were making music on and off for a long time too, but then like the Doogatron really started as Kyle and I, and a lot of that, and I mean really like the biggest influence on it was this. We were like sort of finally old enough to go to techno parties in Detroit, and that just has a big influence on it, and Detroit, like, I mean, there's Detroit techno. There is like, Afrofuturist politics to what people like Underground Resistance or like Jeff Mills were doing, and uh, and it's also just sort of like the sort of like primitive social thing of like getting together and dancing, and it's something that has been, it's a form of music that was definitely pioneered the whole way through by like marginalized people, and I think we really appreciate that history, and we appreciate that sort of like underdog aspect of it, and like one place where like clubbing can really, I feel like the best way I've heard it described, or boiled down to sort of like one thing, is that like the dance floor is supposed to be like even ground and everyone's equal, whatever the case is. When you start getting to see clubs that like have these like crazy like VIP packages and booth and bottle services, and like this sort of like, that's where you start to lose that like original spirit of it.
Yeah, I
And
totally agree with that, man. Totally agree with that.
yeah, and so I mean, I think that informs. I mean, whether it's something that's like expressly communicated through our music or not, like that is something that is just like a major foundation of kind of the way we view things, and like it's yeah, it's, I mean, it's just been the foundation of starting and doing the music and everything, and we might. We've been making music long enough to where we are branching out and trying some different things, and so we'll see where that goes, and there, but that's always going to be such a major part of what inspired us to start doing this, and what kept us from like just sort of like quitting music, or just sort of like growing apart from it and just sort of like letting it go. It was the thing that like kept us from doing that.
Yeah, I love that. And like as you're just talking about the history of techno and everything, it's funny because I was just talking about a very good friend of mine today who has been spinning for 20 years, in clubs around the country and the world. But he we the topic of specifically Detroit, and techno and how it grew out of that scene. The documentary High Tech Soul came up, and
Great stuff.
Gary Brado, great friend of mine actually, and just an amazing human, made that documentary. And every now and then I go back and I watch that, and it's just a good primer for anybody, you know what I mean, even if they're just like getting into the music or whatever. And most of my friends that know me, I'm a very much like guitar driven guy, but I love all kinds of music. I dig so many different things, and techno and all the different sort of brands or genres within what is known as techno. I enjoy for different reasons, and um keeping that history in mind, and like sort of recognizing that we're all sort of standing on the shoulders of giants, right? Like the innovators in that scene in Detroit, right? Like, and moving on to like Demph and everything. Like it's a worldwide thing. It's really cool that you respect that, and like use that as a driver of your music. I really like that. There's no
Absolutely.
question in there, but just a conversation. I think it's very cool. And by the way, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say it. Maybe I am. I'm aware. Maybe possibly there might be a follow up to High Tech Soul. If Gary's watching, he's going to kill me or something. I don't
Ooh.
know, but it'll be cool to see what happens with that. And good
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah, I mean that is a great one. And they had, influences from Chicago, like people who were doing house music like Ron Hardy and Frankie Knuckles, and really that was an extension of the disco era, which
Oh yeah.
and like it's a crazy story. Like, I mean, it's especially weird. Like, there's definitely like a lot of rock people and major labels. I mean, really over invested in disco and like oversaturated it and made it like things that it wasn't. And
Yeah,
so
but we
there
got
was,
the Bee Gees though.
I mean, right. So I mean, so there was all this like backlash against it, and like some of it, is sort of like was like racist or homophobic or whatever, but some of it was some of it was because like major labels like all of a sudden poured a ton of money, and like the Rolling Stones were making disco, so Kiss was making disco songs. There's a Sesame Street disco album, there's a Star Wars disco album, and like that really waters down like what people were really doing or whatever. But anyway, yeah, there's this crazy lineage, and it is very underclass, underdog, blue collar.
Yeah.
Like I definitely love to see a sequel to High Tech Soul. You could definitely make a whole nother movie talking about like the next waves of Detroit techno and everything. But like to tie it all back, like another thing I remember from that talk that I saw with Mad Mike Banks at Moogfest, like like he was a Detroit guy, and I believe he was a mechanic or worked in the auto factories, or I mean, if I'm missing that up, at the very least, all the people like around him were working there, and they like saw like the process of deindustrialization in Detroit and what it did, and they were into sci-fi movies, and they were like literally making this sort of like futury mechanical industrial music and grappling with these very like sci-fi ideas of like, well, a robot just took your job.
Yeah.
And like
And, yep.
it's easy for people to look at like techno or EDM or like or whatever it is, whatever really overhyped commercialized thing that like can really miss the point or come off corny or cheesy or whatever. But like at the heart of it, like a lot of that stuff was like a real, very serious reflection of what's going on. It's not just like, you know,
Yeah, it's not bottle service at the fancy club, right? It's a lot deeper than that, and I appreciate
or
that about that.
yeah, or I remember like I first would have friends who were like getting into like drum and bass or jungle, and like I was under the impression like, oh well, like house or techno, it's like all just thump thump thump, and it's like that's not good or whatever, and I wasn't really informed on that kind of music yet, and I really wasn't. I don't think I was ready to grapple with like the subtleties of it yet either at the time when I was feeling that way about it. But it is just like it's easy for people to look at it and just say, oh, it's vapid, it's party music, it's this. But like when you look at like what like the like again, for example, like Mad Mike Banks or Underground Resistance were doing, and like the kind of statements they were making with their music, I think that's where you can see that like that and techno just as a whole, it was like an actual like artistic reflection of the environment it was created in.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
never
I
thought about it
you
that
know
way.
the mid like in the mid to late '90s, like I was young then. I mean, we were you know scrappy going down to some raves and like in abandoned warehouses and shit. Like it was
That's
you know
awesome.
and so I was witnessing it. And what's interesting is that like when I think back to that time in my life, I didn't I didn't realize what I was actually witnessing. Like now,
Yeah,
now in the like within the last, 10, 15 years, but thinking back, like I didn't know anything back then. I was just like, yeah, we're going to go to this, and there's going to be,
yeah,
dancing and music. And like, I didn't know. I was like 17, 18, 16, 17, 18, right in there. We're like going to these random warehouses, in Detroit
yeah,
and just hanging out, and it was super like super I always felt we always felt super safe and it was very peaceful and then that was back like Detroit has had its challenges and when you were just some scrappy little blue collar white kids going down to the city just to like get our kicks, but we loved the music and we were just into the scene in the way that we're exploring it. And it's funny because like it's become a whole thing, and it did lead to that. There's the commercialization, like you talk about disco. I mean, the same thing happened to grunge, right? Like some of the
sure.
godfathers of grunge, like they hate that fucking word. They're like,
Yeah,
I don't even wear flannel shirts, man. Forget it. But it became it was. But same thing in Seattle. Like if you think about grunge, like it somebody coined the term grunge. I think it was Sub Pop, those guys with Sub Pop or whatever. But it became a thing only after it was already a thing, right?
sure. Yeah. I mean, and like I like what you said about like we weren't really thinking about we were just going out to go to a part. Like there's nothing wrong with it with going into it with that attitude, but like you probably were at like some like warehouse raves at like stuff that like me and my friends who were not old enough for that wave of it yet, like stuff that we would look at as like, like the way people talk about like, oh, I wish I had been
Yeah, I wish I
able
was
to.
alive then.
I wish I was alive then to like whatever classic rock era. Like it has like there's those eras of it that like have achieved that status for like newer generations coming up and yeah, and those things do happen where because like even techno, it was like I don't think I don't think they were thinking of what they were doing as like that different from like house music or whatever. Um, but it was a little different, and they were going for they were. Juan Atkins always says, I believe it was Juan Atkins. He's saying it was like they were going for like Kraftwerk meets Funkadelic,
Yeah,
George Clinton,
yeah, I've heard
and
that.
but yeah, it was a thing that like once Detroit had its own thing going, like I don't think they thought of it as we're doing something different than what the like New York City or what Chicago is already doing, but then it became its own thing. And that can be good and that can be bad. And I don't know, trip hop I think is another great example of that, or even shoegaze of like some things like that. I look at it as like these are things that like music journalists thought of to call something. Like I think like especially in like I think in the case of trip hop, like I don't think people like Portishead or Massive Attack like were into that tag. I think they were like, well, we feels like we were doing something really original, and now you've like come up with something to like lump us in with a bunch of other things. I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It has its ups and its downs. It's just something you gotta reckon with.
That's a good point. I mean, it always makes me wonder what is the, the rave in the mid 90s or late 90s, like what is the version of that going on right now? And I'm not totally sure cuz I'm a different age, like I'm not necessarily in the same, vein of doing things, but I always think about that, like what is the next thing. Um and it's cool that like now, like there's electronic music is not anything new, right? Like it's been around for a long time. Like there's always innovations, there's new pieces of gear that come out, right? And there's new synths and there's old synths. I mean, there's so many options to like make sound now. And I just wonder, like, what do you think is, what's the next, like, I don't know, is there something new burgeoning that you see as an electronic artist? Are you like, what's the innovation that you see next, or what, even better, where does Doogatron see themselves as, time progresses?
I mean, it's hard for me to say like what I think like the new thing is or something because it's all it's I think it's everything is just more fragmented than ever. Like there is still very much like I mean, raving is a lot different or whatever, or like going to parties or clubs. It's a lot,
And
it had to
nobody's doing
change with the
that right now,
laws.
right?
I mean, not yeah, certainly. I sure as hell hope not. But I mean, it had to move different places. It went back to clubs. There's still like, I mean, Detroit definitely still has after hours things, and people try to do, people definitely go back and try to do like, oh, call an info line, and we'll put out the address the night. Like there's definitely people that like go to try to create those sort of situations again. But as far as the actual music, I mean, it would be hard for me to comment on too, because it is like, I'm in my 30s or whatever. And like the next thing's going to be something that like younger people than me are doing or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of ways like you can, like hip hop is like able to speak to a moment more. There's also a lot of different kinds of electronic music, like a lot of it isn't really for me, but like there's clearly like an electronic music that is in sort of like the electric forest sort of like vibe that is like a different thing. They do pick up on like some house and techno and stuff to try to get some of that over there, but there's like I don't know, like a glitchier post dubstepier thing like that. But even that's been kind of around for a while. So like, I wouldn't want to be the one trying to say like I think I know what's next or whatever. I just think in general too, you see a lot more consolidation now. Like even big popular rock bands are more and more becoming like it's very clear that it's like really one person who's leading it and doing most everything, and they like have a band like Tame Impala, War on Drugs, St. Vincent. But yeah, I just feel like, I mean, it is easier than ever now to do stuff like that, and it's sort of logistically gets harder and harder to do bigger ensembles and everything. So I think that is just a trend you see in music, and why DJing has become so popular and in demand. It is sort of just easier to get around and do it, and people like love it and respond to it in big numbers. So it's just like, I mean, economically speaking, it just sort of like it tons of people show up and dance to it, and it's like one person that's playing it at a time or whatever.
Yeah, that's a really
But
good point.
and so as for us specifically, your question, like, what do I see us doing next? I don't know. Yeah, like it is like this year we're doing these singles, and we're starting to have some of our first like outside collaborators in our productions. And so like I don't know where that'll go yet, but I would like, I mean, when we started like finally like putting out the album and self-releasing stuff, like we looked at it as like, okay, well, we're becoming our own label, and so like maybe we will be releasing, we a lot of all of us have like kind of sort of solo music pursuits. We would like to collaborate with more instrumentalists or vocalists or sing, and branch out and try more genres, or just get into different styles or whatever, or really or just fusing different styles together. So like what happened with like that our like this most recent one, Audrey Witherspoon, it's like it reminds me of like acid house in a lot of ways, but it has shoegaze elements. And like the last single, it's like very techno, but like there's like some like guitar in it that I feel like the tone I was going for was kind of like Cocteau Twins, and like the effect that I landed on with my voice. I like, I was comparing it to like stuff that I'm listening to, like Health or Charlie XCX or whatever, like kind of like weird like pop or rock or like heavy stuff with like a lot of electronics or instrument, but it's also, I mean, the sound of it is also very like Kanye, like just the vocal aspect of it, like Kanye 808s and Heartbreak, and like Bon Iver, like what he's doing with vocal processing and production and stuff. And so like, yeah, I think just ultimately in a really broad sense, like I see us hopefully just doing more of that, like fusing more different influences together, that maybe all of the individual parts come directly from somewhere or something, but once they come together, they kind of become something different, that they're all together, or put together.
I love that. And then I think like fusion kind of attempts are always interesting, like bringing those elements in, like where you might not expect it. I think like like pushing at those boundaries, like it's like, I mean, I hate to say it was like the whole fusing, like just as an example, but like sort of like genre bending almost, like where you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna we're gonna add this country-esque guitar to this hip-hop track, and like holy shit, it worked, and then it becomes like one of the best selling songs that somebody recorded in their tiny little studio, just because nobody did that before. Like I find that stuff super interesting, like and finding just, well, what if we did this, and then see what happens. And it might be a disaster, and it might be like, oh well, maybe that didn't work, but it might work. And
Yeah.
Then you have
Yeah,
something fresh.
yeah, and it's like I mean, we love techno. It is the foundation of what our music and what got us together making music. Um, but it can also be it's very niche and arguably oversaturated right now, maybe. And
Everything is.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Everything is in any kind of content or music or whatever. But like, so we were just like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Let's just try putting other things together, like that. Like this is still a part of what we're doing or what we're inspired by, or like it's somewhere where I still see like a genuine musical subculture, like and so we take some of that like independence or ethos and like the sound or like the drums or the rhythms or whatever, and just try to make something new out of it, or yeah. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great attitude to have, because like I said, there's so much music has been done, and we can continue to try and push envelopes, and that's all. That's amazing, and it's so cool that we can actually do that, like that we have the opportunity to do it, because and especially right now, because shows are kind of tentative, right? Like, no, I know people are doing some shows like in clubs, but even the Blind Pig kind of shut down again for a while, and we're doing the outside thing, which I think makes me feel more comfortable. I think all of us, where we can kind of have that open air space, and people are cool. But like there's this like literally air of uncertainty, and being certain about things is kind of hard. Like, well, how are you going to release your record, and are you going to have, your next single, are you going to have a, having a record release party seems like, well, maybe we can have like 10 or 15 people there standing 6 feet apart or whatever. Like, it's all very uncertain. But like, what do you think is like most certain right now, given the uncertainty, and most certain in terms of like, maybe it could be your own music, or it could be the music scene in general, or it could be, what do you think it could be certain out of any of the uncertainty we got going on right now?
well, I mean, for me, for us, it's really as simple as like, well, no telling when this is going to be like a normal thing again, and it's just been a very clear indicator to just focus more on writing, recording, putting stuff down. We're still able to release and get music out there, whether it may be hard to reach people, or you're kind of, again, you're like in a saturated field or everything. But it's very much like it's just been a reminder of that to me, that like that is a lot more what's still really keeping me in it, and what I'm probably most passionate about it still. Like, we were starting to get some pretty good, like, sort of mobile DJ gigs, kind of like, not like a like wedding or anything like that, but just sort of like non club gigs, but just like, parties where like a friend of ours asked to do a party at Wayne State for Noel night. We set up and did like 2 hours there of like DJing and like a live set in the middle of it and DJing afterwards. And we were going to do something like that at the Blind Pig. We were supposed to play there in April. Well, in the upstairs, that No Comment cocktail lounge that they just started. So, I mean, we were just finally starting to be like, oh wow, well, this is picking up a bit more or whatever. But like, I don't know. Like I said, we and that is also too where, like, I mean, when you get stuff like that, like, you're going to make more. I mean, at least at our level and where we're at so far, it's like that you're going to make more money getting gigs like that than releasing music right now. Um,
Yeah.
but some of what generates the interest in you or in us, it's like it's that you are making and releasing original music, and and like I said, we all work full time. You know, this is our schedules only line up like one day a week to actually get together and work together in person, like for that part of it. That
Yeah,
that
it's a real challenge.
but it's at least right now it's just like, well, we've only got this kind of time. It's like we got like it's given us a chance to just be like, well, let's just focus on making more music, make more tunes, you know, record more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think and I think that's great. Like, I think there's actually like there's going to be this burgeoning like buildup of music. That's because I think a lot of people are in that same mind frame right now. From you know, as artists, like, what else are you going to do, right? Like, you just have to make music. There's limited gig opportunities, limited touring opportunities. It's just not happening right now to the degree that it was. So I'm hopeful, and I'm excited to hear the music that gets created in the next like 10 to 18 months. Cause I think we're going to have, you know, move forwards and pullbacks with this whole COVID thing. You know, like, I find myself trying to find ways to look forward to these things because, you know, we were all looking forward to the summer season, I'm sure, right? Like being out on patios and festivals and, like, you know, people touring and you know, summer shows and stuff, and that's not happening a lot right now in very, very small, you know, little places. So I'm like you, I feel you know, like just hammering down and writing some more stuff and getting to business. So, you know, we're gonna move forward. You know, it's not like we're gonna stop making music, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. It might change what you feel like making. Like it can be hard to be like, I mean, sometimes you need it and it's just a part of what we listen to anyway, but it's like, what is the shelf life on techno or not, or will it change a lot if people aren't able to get together for a long period of time? I don't think
Yeah, that's
it'll
a good point.
I don't think it'll be forever or anything. And like there is like this there's just this timeless like gathering and social aspect that goes back to like tribal eras that I think it'll always be. But for
So
the
that's
time
pure
being,
evolutionary right there, you know?
yeah, I mean, but yeah, I think for the time being, it is kind of like, well, what kind of, you know, like, I, what am I making this music for, and how are people going to be listening to this, and so what I don't know, yeah, what's going to make sense or what's right for what environments people are actually hearing and digesting this music in.
Maybe like a techno rock opera. I don't know.
That could be cool. That could be cool. Or like I don't know, like there's some really cool like halftime techno that's like very chill or like psychedelic or like dubby, like
Yeah.
that stuff that's a little more uh like home listening or headphone listening
Yeah, driving
and
in my car listening.
yeah, like yeah, I mean, so that's the thing too. You know, people sort of might equate it with like one thing, but like it is something that like goes a lot of different directions and can be appropriate in a lot of different situations and use and just used in a lot of different ways.
No doubt. No doubt. I mean, maybe there's opportunities for, you know, soundtrack music and who else knows, you know,
Sure.
there's, um, I know at some
licensing.
point,
Yeah.
I know at some point we want like a really cool like video intro as we, build our podcast and Grove sessions and stuff. We want like a really cool like video intro with like some sweet music. So, there's a thing. It could be, acid
Yeah.
or house or whatever. Like I'm good
Yeah.
with that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like licensing, soundtracking, like video games. Yeah, like I mean,
Yeah.
there's still, I mean, like there's still all kinds of need for music. I mean, and people just need it in general. Like
Yeah.
I mean, that won't change. Other things will, and that might affect it somewhat. But that's never gonna go away. That people just need music and need different kinds of music for different situations in their life or what they're doing throughout their day or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And I think, I think I'm just really grateful to be part of a music community that seems to generally believe that. Like everybody that I've talked to, and I think this is like episode 38, actually, by the way,
Very nice.
of Growth Sessions. So, we've talked to a lot of people, we've asked a lot of questions, and we've had a lot of awesome conversations. And I appreciate you weighing in on, things from the electronic side and just like the scene in general. I'm looking forward to, your next release, and we're going to get that video re-uploaded in a slightly lower than 1080p.
Or I mean, I don't
people
know.
can enjoy it
Or
because it's the
yeah.
internet,
Sure, but I don't know. I think once I don't know. I like I said, we haven't done any of the streaming stuff, so like I don't know how that is. But like I think once you like just like slap something on YouTube, like it kind of like
it gets compressed a little bit anyway. It's what it is, but it'll be better. We got a little herky jerky today. The good news is we're working on a lot of other lives rather than doing the pre-recorded. The actual live stream thing is gonna get better too. We're gonna do another test out on a Saturday, so I think we've got some good things up our sleeves. So we should keep in touch, and I know we're planning some stuff towards the end of summer. COVID willing, and depending on what happens with the phases and all that stuff. But hopefully we can look forward to another end of the summer soiree of some sort. I imagine your music being a good part of it, providing some good soundtrack to some more outside times before you have to either lock down or just go inside because it's too damn cold in Michigan, right?
Yeah. I mean, at least you guys do at least have that good thing going with that courtyard out there, like that. That is one of the only things that like I have done really is go to some outdoor. Like I've been to some of the protests or like the abolitionist parties. Like I've been to those, and like it is risky, and like it all this stuff going back up has definitely sort of made me reassess and everything. But it is the we go for a walk and go to parks in general, and so it's and you kind of can sort of keep your own distance or whatever, and like watch out for yourself in that way. And we'll see what happens, of course, but it's at least that's definitely a start, is being able to just play some music outside.
No doubt. I think that's one of the best ways to at least celebrate summer and celebrate life. And we look forward to doing it with you again, man. Everything going in the right direction, hopefully. And I think we can keep it, safe. I really enjoyed your performance. Look forward to another one. Love your music. Everybody who's watching, Stevie Tee from Doogatron, Make sure you go to Doogatron's various presences on the web. You can mute helps. You can go to Doogatron. Let's see. Doogatron.bandcamp.com to check out all their releases. But you guys are also on Spotify and all of the digital platforms. So
yeah. I mean, I would definitely say our Bandcamp, but like, yeah, if for people out there, if you're using a streaming service, we got stuff on them. You know, we're on SoundCloud or YouTube. It can be a lot, like trying to keep content on everything or whatever.
It's hard. But the Bandcamp is cool, especially because you guys have awesome artwork, and you can click, if you're on a desktop, you can click on your artwork and it blows up nice and big, and you can check out the cool artwork that you guys have. So yeah, everybody, check out Doogatron, Doogatron.bandcamp.com. Thanks very much to Stevie Tee for being here, taking the time and muddling through some of our technical difficulties. Super appreciate you. Max Price, as always, man, pleasure to hang out with you and rap music with another great artist, man. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Hey, and also remember, Grove Studios, we got the podcast room open right now. It's totally free for the month of July. So if you've been thinking about doing a podcast or something like that, you got a concept, you're not sure, super easy to use. Even if you don't think you're super technically savvy, getting into the podcast room is easy. And we just want you to share your voice with the world. And of course, we have 24/7 rehearsals and recording space at Grove. And we'd love you to come by and check out the studio and make some music, because music makes the world a better place. Thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you very soon on our next one. Friday, we got Graham. He's going to be doing we're going to do another podcast about music therapy and the great work that he's doing. It's going to be a really special session. We're going to have some guest artists that work with Graham and work in Grove Studios. Really looking forward to Friday. And so we'll see you at the next Grove Sessions. Stevie, Max, see you guys later.
Peace.
Have a good night, everyone.
Night.